Liam had never been to a party like this before. He wasn't the type to rub elbows with the elite, but when his friend Mark invited him to a once-in-a-lifetime event, Liam couldn't say no. The venue was a grand mansion perched on a hill, glowing under the moonlight. Everything about the night seemed out of place for him. The lavish decor, the expensive champagne, and most of all, the people. They looked so polished it felt like they belonged to another world. Liam sipped his drink, feeling a little out of place. He stood by the grand staircase, trying to look casual, but he felt like everyone was staring at him. He wasn't used to this kind of luxury. Mark had told him to enjoy himself, but Liam's thoughts kept drifting back to the simplicity of his small apartment and the quiet comfort of his regular life. That's when he saw her. She was standing near the entrance, talking to a small group of people, but even from across the room, Liam couldn't look away. Her presence was magnetic, as if the air itself seemed to shift around her. She wore a stunning silver gown that shimmered in the light, and her eyes, a deep shade of violet, seemed to hold an untold mystery. It wasn't just her beauty that caught his attention, but the way she carried herself. Regal, graceful, and yet with a certain warmth that made her seem approachable. Without even realizing it, Liam found himself walking toward her. His heart raced as he approached the woman, his nerves tingling with a mix of awe and uncertainty. When he reached her, she turned and smiled, her lips curving up in a way that seemed both knowing and kind. "Good evening," she said in a voice that was smooth like velvet. "Hi," Liam replied, feeling awkward. I don't think we've met." "I'm Thalia," she said, extending her hand. "And you are?" "I'm Liam. I wasn't sure if I belonged here, to be honest," he admitted, a slight laugh escaping his lips. Thalia's smile deepened, and she tilted her head, studying him with a look that made him feel strangely seen. "I think you belong here more than you realize." They spoke for a while longer, the conversation flowing effortlessly despite Liam's initial hesitation. As the night wore on, he found himself drawn to her more and more. There was something about her that was different, something that felt both familiar and foreign at the same time. They shared stories and laughter, and soon, Liam felt as though he'd known her for much longer than a few hours. By the time the clock struck midnight, Liam felt as if he was floating. He wasn't sure how it happened, but somehow they had ended up in a private room. Thalia had mentioned an ancient ceremony, something about joining two souls for eternity. Before Liam could even process what was happening, a mysterious force seemed to swirl around them, and in an instant, the ceremony had taken place. Liam blinked, trying to make sense of it. He wasn't sure what had just happened, but one thing was clear. His life was about to change in ways he couldn't have imagined. The next morning, Liam woke up with a headache. The events of the previous night were still a blur in his mind. He rubbed his eyes and glanced around the unfamiliar room. The bed was enormous, the sheets silky, and the air smelled faintly of exotic flowers. This definitely wasn't his tiny apartment. He sat up, his head spinning. He had gone to a party, met a beautiful woman, and then something strange happened. He remembered her name, Thalia, but everything else was a fog. Had they really gotten married? He shook his head, thinking it was impossible. There was no way. Before he could gather his thoughts, the door opened, and in walked two tall, serious-looking individuals dressed in formal clothing. They were wearing odd metallic badges on their chests that Liam didn't recognize. They looked like they belonged in a sci-fi movie, not his life. One of them, a man with short black hair, cleared his throat. "Liam, I presume," he said, his tone formal. Liam stared at him, confused. "Oh yeah, that's me. Who are you?" "We are the royal emissaries from the planet Selthera." The woman with dark blue eyes spoke, her voice calm but firm. "You are now legally married to Queen Thalia." Liam blinked. He hadn't heard that right. "What? Married? No, that can't be right. We were just talking, and..." The marriage ceremony took place last night. The man interrupted, his expression serious. It was an ancient binding ritual. It was not something you could have avoided. Liam stood up, his heart racing. Wait. This is some kind of mistake, right? I'm not married to anyone, especially not some queen. You must be confusing me with someone else. The woman shook her head. No mistake. Your bond with Queen Thalia has been sealed. The union between you is now official, and it cannot be undone. Liam's mind was spinning. This had to be a joke. He had heard of people getting drunk and making bad decisions, but marrying an alien queen. He looked down at his clothes, his plain t-shirt and jeans, and then back at the royal emissaries. They looked so serious, so certain. I don't even know her. How can this marriage be real? Liam's voice was rising in frustration. It is real, Liam, the woman replied. The bond is recognized by our laws, and your life is now intertwined with Queen Thalia's. You will be part of the royal family, and Earth is now linked to the Zeltharan Empire. Liam could hardly believe what he was hearing. He wasn't some prince or chosen hero. He was just a guy who had accidentally wandered into the wrong party. And now his life was forever connected to a world beyond his own. We will escort you to the royal palace, the man said, breaking the silence. Your presence is required immediately. Liam's hands trembled. This wasn't a dream. It was all real. As they led him out of the room and through the grand hallways of what appeared to be an enormous palace, Liam's mind raced with questions. What had he gotten himself into? How could he possibly navigate a world so different from his own? And most of all, what kind of life awaited him with a queen he barely knew? As they walked, he caught a glimpse of something that made his stomach drop. Queen Thalia standing by a grand window, her back turned to him. She was waiting for him. Liam had no idea what came next, but one thing was certain. His life had just turned upside down. Liam stepped into the royal palace, his mind still reeling from the morning's shocking revelations. The grand hallways stretched endlessly in all directions, each one more beautiful and alien than the last. The walls were made of shimmering metal, and strange holographic images flickered in the air, telling stories Liam couldn't understand. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, like something out of a science fiction movie, only it was all real. The royal emissaries guided him through the vast corridors, and Liam tried his best to keep up, feeling small in the midst of the palace's grandeur. He had no idea what to expect, but he certainly didn't think it would be this overwhelming. You'll be meeting Queen Thalia shortly, the man said without looking at Liam. She is waiting for you in the royal chamber. Liam nodded, though he wasn't sure if he could manage to speak. His stomach churned with a mix of anxiety and disbelief. Just yesterday, he was an average guy going about his ordinary life. Now, he was walking through the heart of an alien palace, about to meet a queen he barely knew, and who he certainly hadn't planned to marry. When they finally arrived at the royal chamber, the doors swung open. Inside, Queen Thalia stood by a large window, her long silver gown flowing gracefully behind her. She didn't turn when they entered, and for a moment, Liam hesitated at the doorway, unsure of what to do. Thalia's voice broke the silence. You've arrived, she said, turning to face him. Her violet eyes locked with his, calm yet intense. Come in, Liam. Liam stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't know what to say to her. After all, they were technically married now, even though it still felt like a dream. He tried to gather his thoughts, but everything seemed foreign. Her world, her palace, even her way of speaking. Queen Thalia, he said, his voice unsure. This is all. A lot to take in. I don't understand any of this. Thalia's lips curved into a soft smile. I understand. This is not an easy situation, but you must know that you are now an important part of my world. Liam shifted uncomfortably. I'm not even sure I'm ready for any of this. I don't know anything about your world, your customs, or your people. Thalia stepped closer, her presence filling the room. That's why I will teach you, she said. You will learn everything in time. You must for the good of both our people. Her words left Liam feeling more confused than ever. He hadn't signed up for any of this. He didn't even know what it meant to be the consort of an alien queen. Was he supposed to lead her people, help make decisions? How was he supposed to fit into a world that felt so completely different from his own? I'm just a regular guy, he muttered, his hands clenched at his sides. I don't know if I can do this. Thalia regarded him silently for a moment. You don't have to be perfect, Liam. You only need to be true to yourself. I've seen something in you that no one else has. Liam met her gaze, a bit of hope stirring in him. I don't know if I can be the man you need, he admitted quietly. You already are, Thalia replied, her voice gentle. Now we begin. With that, she motioned for him to follow her. As they walked deeper into the palace, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change forever. There was no turning back now. Liam followed Queen Thalia through the royal palace, his mind still spinning from the revelation that his life was no longer his own. As they walked through the vast hallways, the walls seemed to hum with energy, and strange symbols flickered across the floors like glowing runes. The palace was beautiful, but also overwhelming. Liam couldn't shake the feeling that he was in way over his head. Thalia led him into a large, circular room at the heart of the palace. The ceiling was made of clear glass, allowing the bright light of 3 suns to shine through, casting shimmering patterns across the floor. At the center of the room stood an ancient-looking stone pedestal, and surrounding it were holographic displays showing various star systems and political maps. This is where I make my most important decisions, Thalia said, gesturing to the room. The future of my people, my kingdom, and now, our alliance with Earth, will be decided here. Liam looked around, amazed. This place, it's incredible. Thalia smiled, though there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. It is beautiful, yes, but there is also great responsibility in ruling a kingdom. Liam felt a wave of uncertainty wash over him. He had no experience with ruling anything, let alone an entire planet. He was just a regular guy, not some hero or king. But as he looked at Thalia, he could see the weight of the crown on her shoulders. Her regal appearance didn't mask the exhaustion in her expression. Thalia, I don't know how I can help you with all of this, Liam said, his voice hesitant. I'm not a king. I'm just me. Thalia turned to face him, her violet eyes filled with a kind of intensity he hadn't seen before. That's why I chose you, Liam. You may not see it yet, but you have something others don't. You have courage, humility, and a way of seeing the world differently. That's why I need you by my side. Liam felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Was she really depending on him for something this big? What could he possibly offer to a queen and an entire kingdom? But why me? Liam asked, struggling to understand. There must be someone else who's more qualified. Someone from your world who understands all of this. Thalia's gaze softened. I've had many suitors before. They were all powerful, skilled, and wise. But none of them had the ability to look beyond power and status. You, Liam, you see things for what they truly are. You see the people, the heart of the matter. That is what my kingdom needs now more than ever. Liam didn't know what to say. He had never thought of himself as someone special. He was just a man who went to work every day, hoping to make it through without causing too much trouble. But standing here, in this alien palace, surrounded by the power of an entire empire, he couldn't deny that Thalia believed in him. We are on the brink of a great conflict, Thalia continued, her voice now tinged with urgency. The rival empire is preparing to strike. My people are divided, and they look to me for answers. But I cannot do this alone. I need you, Liam. Liam swallowed hard. He had no idea what he was getting into, but one thing was clear. Thalia was right. The stakes were high, and if he didn't step up now, the consequences could be catastrophic. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Thalia placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You don't need to be ready. You just need to try." Liam took a deep breath. As much as he wanted to run, something inside him told him to stay and face whatever came next. For Thalia, and for her kingdom, he would try. Liam stood at the window of the royal chamber, staring out at the vast city below. From here, the palace looked peaceful, almost serene. But beneath the calm exterior, he knew there were dark clouds gathering. Thalia had explained the situation in detail, and the weight of her words sat heavily on his chest. The rival empire, known as the Tsirith, had been a constant threat to her kingdom. Their forces were powerful, and they had no hesitation when it came to expanding their control over other planets. Thalia's kingdom had been at peace for years, but now that peace was on the edge of collapse. "They'll attack soon," Thalia had said earlier. "We have no choice but to prepare for war." Liam couldn't even begin to imagine what that meant. He was just a regular guy. How could he help stop an invasion? And how could he be of any use in a war between two powerful alien empires? Thalia had tried to reassure him. "You have more to offer than you think, Liam. We must act quickly, and your presence here is more important than ever." She had given him a glimpse of her world's politics, maps, alliances, and secret plans to protect her people. But the truth was, nothing Liam had learned in the past few days had prepared him for the danger they were about to face. As he stood there, lost in thought, a loud beep echoed through the room. It was the palace's communication system. A holographic image appeared in front of him, a man wearing a dark military uniform. His face was serious, his eyes filled with urgency. "Queen Thalia," the man said, his voice steady but strained. "The Tsirith fleet has been spotted on the outskirts of our system. They're on their way." Liam's heart skipped a beat. The Tsirith were already here. Thalia's expression hardened. She stepped forward, her regal composure returning, but Liam could see the worry behind her eyes. "Prepare our defenses," she said calmly. "Make sure the fleet is in position. I'll be there shortly." The man nodded and disappeared from the hologram. Thalia turned to Liam, her face more serious than he had ever seen it. "They've come earlier than we expected," she said quietly. "This is the moment of truth. If we don't act now, the Tsirith will destroy everything we've worked for." Liam nodded, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. The peaceful life he had known was gone. There was no more going back to his old job, his old routine. He was part of something much bigger now, and whether he liked it or not, he had to play his part. "I don't know what I can do," he admitted, feeling small. "I've never been in a war. I don't even know how to fight." "You don't have to fight in the traditional sense, Liam," Thalia said, her voice softening. "You have something the others don't, a perspective that could help us make the right decisions." Liam was still unsure, but there was something in her eyes that made him believe her. Maybe, just maybe, he could help after all. Thalia turned toward the door. "Come with me. It's time to make sure we're ready for whatever comes next." Liam followed her out of the chamber, his heart racing. The calm, peaceful life he had once known was gone, and now he was about to face a danger he couldn't fully comprehend. But for Thalia and her kingdom, he would do whatever it took. Liam felt like a fish out of water as he sat at the long table in the royal war room. Around him, officers and advisors from Thalia's court discussed the upcoming battle plans. They spoke in a language that was partly familiar, but mostly foreign to him. The holographic maps that hovered above the table displayed swirling battle lines, fleets, and coordinates. It all seemed so complicated, so out of his reach. He glanced across the room at Thalia. She was standing by the far wall, talking with a group of military leaders. Her posture was confident, her voice firm, but Liam could see the slight tension in her eyes. He knew she was carrying the weight of the kingdom on her shoulders. And now, because of an accident, he was part of it all. He had no idea how he could help, He wasn't a soldier, he wasn't a strategist, he was just a guy from Earth. And yet Thalia had made it clear that she needed him. He couldn't run from this, no matter how overwhelming it felt. Liam, a voice said, pulling him from his thoughts. He looked up to see Thalia's chief advisor, a woman named Siren, standing in front of him. Siren was tall, with sharp features and a calculating look in her eyes. "You're not listening," Siren said with a slight frown. "We need your input on the Alliance strategy." Liam blinked. "My input? I don't even know what any of this means." Siren raised an eyebrow. "Exactly. You think like an outsider. That's why your perspective matters. We're all too close to the situation. You're not bound by the politics of this place, and that gives you a fresh viewpoint." Liam opened his mouth to argue but paused. She was right. He had no preconceived notions about the way things were done on Zelthera. He didn't know the history of its rulers or the old grudges between the empires. He didn't even understand the alien technology or the strategies the military leaders were discussing. But maybe, just maybe, his outsider perspective could help in a way they hadn't thought of. "Okay," he said, feeling uncertain but determined. "What do you need me to do?" Siren motioned for him to come closer to the holographic display. "The Tsirith are unpredictable. They've never attacked in this way before, which is why we're having difficulty anticipating their moves. But you've seen them firsthand. What do you think they'll do?" Liam frowned, thinking back to everything Thalia had told him about the Tsirith, their aggressive tactics, their thirst for power. But there was something else, something in their behavior that didn't quite add up. "I think they'll try to catch us off guard," Liam said slowly. "They know we're preparing for war, so they'll try something unexpected. Maybe a diversion, or a feint to split our forces." Siren nodded, impressed. "A diversion. We hadn't considered that. You may be right. They would want to weaken us before they strike." Liam felt a strange sense of pride. He had actually contributed something useful. It wasn't much, but it was something. Siren gave him a brief nod of approval before turning back to the others, who were now discussing his suggestion. Thalia walked over to him, her eyes softening when she saw the uncertainty in his expression. "You're doing well, Liam," she said quietly. "Your instincts are sharp." Liam chuckled nervously. "I don't know about that. I'm just guessing." "You're more capable than you give yourself credit for," she said with a smile. "You've already helped us see something we missed." Liam looked at her, feeling a mix of relief and pride. He was still out of his depth, but for the first time since this whole mess started, he felt like maybe he could contribute. Maybe he wasn't just some ordinary guy after all. "I'll do my best," Liam said, his voice steady now. "I know you will," Thalia replied. She placed a hand on his shoulder, offering silent support as the room went back to its planning. Liam knew the road ahead would be tough, but he was ready to face it. For her, for the kingdom, and maybe for himself too. The tension in the air was thick as Liam stood on the balcony of the royal palace, looking out over the horizon. The bright sky was slowly darkening, and the distant sound of military engines echoed through the air. The Xirith fleet was approaching, and with each passing minute, the sense of urgency grew stronger. Liam had never imagined he'd be involved in anything like this. One moment, he was just a guy living an ordinary life on Earth. And now, he was standing on a strange alien world, watching as war came to its doorstep. His heart pounded as he thought about everything that had led him here. His accidental marriage to Queen Thalia, the responsibility he now had, and the lives at stake. Thalia had asked him to stay with her during the battle, to offer advice and help in any way he could. But as the moments passed, he felt more and more out of place. He wasn't a soldier. He didn't know how to lead an army or fight in a war. What could he possibly do? "You're doing the right thing." Thalia's voice interrupted his thoughts. She walked up behind him, her presence a calming force amidst the chaos around them. Liam turned to face her. Her calm demeanor was a stark contrast to the tension that filled the palace, but there was a quiet strength in her that Liam admired. "I don't feel like I'm doing much. I don't know anything about warfare." "You're helping us in ways you don't realize," she replied. Her violet eyes met his, filled with trust and determination. "The way you think, the way you see things, sometimes that's what we need most. Not just soldiers, but someone who can think differently, someone who doesn't see the world as we do." Liam wasn't sure how to respond. He had barely done anything. But he could see the weight in Thalia's eyes. She had been carrying this burden alone for so long, and now, for the first time, she had someone by her side. That thought gave him some sense of purpose. The sound of sirens suddenly rang through the palace, signaling that the Xerath forces had reached the outer defenses. Liam's stomach churned, and he could feel the rush of adrenaline building inside him. The time for talking was over. It was time for action. "Are you ready?" Thalia asked, her voice steady. Liam nodded, though his heart was racing. "I guess so." They walked together to the war room, where military officers were already gathered. The large holographic map in the center of the room displayed the positions of the enemy fleet, and the atmosphere was thick with the urgency of the moment. The officer in charge, General Kor, turned as they entered. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing slightly, "we're ready for your command." Thalia stepped forward, her confidence unwavering. "Prepare the fleet for immediate defense. Focus on the Xerath's weakest flank, as we discussed. Liam, I want you to help us with strategy. Your idea of a diversion. Are we ready for it?" Liam took a deep breath, his mind racing. He had suggested a diversion earlier, and now it was his turn to make it happen. "We can use the outer fleet to create a false front, draw their attention away from the main force. If we hit them from the other side, they won't see it coming." General Kor nodded approvingly. "We've got the ships in position. We just need to make sure the timing is right." Liam's heart was pounding, but there was something in his chest that told him he was doing the right thing. This wasn't just about strategy. It was about helping Thalia and her people, making sure they had a chance to survive. The battle began soon after, the sound of explosions and blaster fire echoing through the walls of the palace. Liam had never imagined war could be so intense, so chaotic. But he stayed focused, watching the tactics unfold, offering suggestions when he could. The distraction worked. The Xerath fleet was thrown off balance, and Thalia's forces struck with precision. As the first wave of the battle passed, Liam stood beside Thalia, his heart still racing, but a sense of pride beginning to settle in. They had made it through the first fight, together. "You did well," Thalia said quietly, her hand gently resting on his arm. Liam nodded, feeling more a part of this strange world than he ever thought possible. He wasn't just a spectator anymore. He was a part of the fight, a part of something much bigger than himself. The battle had raged for hours, the roar of explosions, and the whir of energy weapons filling the air. Liam stood on the balcony of the royal palace, watching the chaos unfold. He had never imagined his life would lead him here, but now, surrounded by war and destruction, he had to focus. The Xerath had launched their most powerful attack yet. Their fleet was relentless, pushing forward with all their might. It was clear that they were not going to stop until they had taken everything. Thalia's forces had managed to hold their ground for now, but the tide of battle could change in an instant. Thalia walked up beside him, her face grim but determined. She had not left her command center for hours, but she refused to leave the battlefield. Liam could see the toll the battle was taking on her. Her shoulders were slumped, her movements slower, but her resolve was as strong as ever. "We're running out of time," Thalia said, her voice tight with worry. "If we don't find a way to break their formation soon, we'll lose everything." Liam could see the strain in her eyes, and for a moment, he felt a deep sympathy for her. She had been carrying this kingdom on her shoulders for so long. The pressure to protect her people, to defend against the Xerath, was immense. And now, here he was, a man who had no experience in war, trying to help her save everything. He turned to look at her, his heart pounding. "What can I do?" he asked. "I'm not a soldier. I don't know how to lead an army. But I can't just stand here and watch." Thalia gave him a small, tired smile. "You've already done more than I could have asked for, Liam. Your strategy with the diversion was brilliant. But now we need something different. Something unexpected." Liam thought for a moment. "What if we don't fight them head-on? What if we focus on disrupting their command structure instead? If we can take out their leaders, their ships will fall apart." Thalia looked at him, her eyes widening slightly. "You're suggesting we target their commanders?" Liam nodded. "Yes. If we can create confusion among their ranks, we might be able to weaken their forces. The Xerath aren't just a powerful army. They're organized. If we disrupt their leadership, they'll fall into chaos." It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was the best he could think of. The Xerath were strong, but their power came from their unity. Without that, they would be like any other army, vulnerable. Thalia considered his words for a long moment. "I'll give the order," she said at last. "If we can pull this off, we might just turn the tide." The plan was put into motion immediately. Thalia's forces moved swiftly, using their ships to infiltrate the Xerath fleet, targeting their command ships with precision strikes. The first few hits were successful, creating a ripple of confusion among the Xerath forces. Liam watched from the balcony, his heart racing as the enemy's carefully organized lines began to unravel. It was working. Soon, the Xerath were no longer working together as a unit. Their ships scattered, their attacks losing their focus. The Zeltheran fleet capitalized on the disarray, pushing forward with renewed energy. Liam's heart swelled with hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could win this. Thalia turned to him, her face illuminated by the flashing lights of the battle outside. "You did it," she said, her voice filled with awe. "You turned the tide." Liam was exhausted, his body aching from the tension of the last few hours. But as he looked at Thalia, standing there, her eyes full of gratitude, he couldn't help but smile. They weren't out of danger yet, but they had a chance. They were winning. And in that moment, Liam realized that he was no longer just a bystander. He had become an integral part of this battle, of this kingdom. He had found his place, not just as the accidental husband of a queen, but as someone who could make a difference. The battle had shifted in their favor, but Thalia knew that victory was still far from certain. The Xerath had been thrown into disarray, their command structure weakened, but they were far from defeated. As the Zeltheran fleet pushed forward, Thalia knew that the Xerath would regroup and try to make one final push. They had to finish what they started, or everything they had fought for would be lost. Liam stood at her side, his eyes glued to the holographic map in the war room. The Xerath fleet was still formidable, but the confusion among their ranks was their greatest weakness now. If they could strike one last blow, they might break the Xerath for good. "We need to end this now," Thalia said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "If we let them reorganize, they'll fight back with everything they have. We have to act quickly." Liam nodded, his heart racing. "What do you need me to do?" Thalia turned to him, her violet eyes filled with resolve. "You've proven yourself time and again, Liam. I need you to help me make the final decision. The fleet needs a lead, and I can't do this alone." Liam wasn't sure he was ready for the responsibility of leading the fleet, but he knew that Thalia trusted him. That trust gave him the strength he needed to step up. He had come a long way from the man who had walked into the palace months ago, confused and uncertain. Now he was standing beside a queen, making decisions that could determine the fate of an entire world. "Okay," Liam said, his voice firm. "Let's do this." They moved quickly, issuing commands to the fleet. They would send a small but powerful group of ships to strike at the heart of the Xerath fleet, their command ship. If they could disable the flagship, it would send the message that Zelthera was not backing down. The Xerath would know that they were no longer in control. As the fleet moved into position, Liam felt a knot form in his stomach. This was the moment of truth. If they succeeded, they would have victory. If they failed, it could mean the destruction of Zelthara and everything Thalia had worked for. The ships moved into position, and the battle resumed. Liam watched, his heart in his throat, as the small fleet moved closer to the Xirith command ship. The enemy's forces were regrouping, but they didn't seem to expect the bold move that Zelthara had made. The element of surprise was on their side. Seconds felt like hours as the Zeltharan ships fired on the Xirith flagship. The first shot hit, and then another. The Xirith fleet responded with everything they had, but it was too late. The flagship was taking heavy damage, and their coordination was falling apart. Liam watched in awe as Thalia's forces closed in for the final blow. The Xirith were retreating, their fleet scattering in chaos. The tide had turned completely. Did we win? Liam asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Thalia looked at him, her face reflecting a mix of exhaustion and relief. Yes, she said simply. We did. For the first time in what felt like forever, Liam allowed himself to relax. The battle was over. The Xirith had been defeated. And though they had won, Liam knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter for Zelthara, and for him. He had found his place in this strange new world, not just as the accidental husband of a queen, but as someone who had helped save a kingdom. He still wasn't sure where the future would take him, but for the first time, he felt certain that he was where he was meant to be. The days following the battle were a whirlwind of celebrations and relief. The Xirith had retreated, their fleet scattered and broken. Zelthara had won. The kingdom was safe, for now, and Thalia's leadership had been solidified. But even as the palace halls echoed with the sounds of victory, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. He stood by the large windows of the royal chamber, looking out at the planet below. It was a beautiful sight, the sprawling cities, the green forests, the oceans that stretched endlessly into the horizon. He had never imagined he'd be standing here, in this world, with such an important role in it. The door behind him opened, and Thalia entered. She looked as regal as ever, her silver gown flowing behind her, but there was a quiet sadness in her eyes. She had led them through the battle, but the weight of everything, her kingdom, her people, and now her unexpected marriage to Liam, was clearly heavy on her shoulders. Liam, Thalia said softly, her voice breaking the silence. We've done it. We've won. Liam turned to face her, his heart swelling with pride. He had been a part of something greater than himself, something he hadn't even understood at first. We did, he replied, his voice steady. But there's still so much ahead of us, isn't there? Thalia nodded, her gaze distant. Yes, the war is over, but there is much to rebuild. My people are tired, and the Xirith will likely regroup. We have a long road ahead. Liam took a step toward her, his heart full of both admiration and concern. But we'll face it together, right? You don't have to do it all alone. She looked at him, a small, genuine smile playing on her lips. No, I don't have to do it alone. I have you. For a moment, they simply stood there, the weight of everything they had faced together hanging in the air. It was a strange feeling, being connected to someone so deeply, someone from an entirely different world. But it didn't feel strange anymore. It felt right. Liam had come to realize that his life had changed in ways he never expected. He had gone from an ordinary man, unsure of his place, to someone who had stood by the queen and helped save an entire kingdom. He had found a new purpose, a new family, and a connection that transcended worlds. Thalia stepped closer, her hand reaching out to gently touch his arm. Liam, there is something I need to ask you, she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. What is it? Liam asked, his heart beating faster at the serious tone in her voice. She took a deep breath. You've been a great help to me, and I've come to value you in ways I never thought possible. I know this marriage was never planned, but I need to ask you, Will you stay by my side? Will you continue to help me lead this kingdom? Liam felt a surge of emotion. He had never expected to be here, never imagined that he would be a part of this alien world. But now, standing before Thalia, with everything they had faced together, he knew what his answer was. "I'm not going anywhere," Liam said, his voice firm and full of conviction. "I'll stay. I'll be here for you, Thalia, for as long as you'll have me." Thalia smiled, the sadness in her eyes fading, replaced with something warmer, something real. "Thank you, Liam. I couldn't do this without you." And so, with the Xerath defeated and the future uncertain, Liam made a decision that would change the rest of his life. He had found a new world, a new family, and a new purpose. And with Thalia by his side, he was ready to face whatever came next. For the first time, Liam felt like he truly belonged, and that was enough.